Sawadee krap and welcome to Thailand News Today. Now today we're coming to you from Phuket, from a particular favourite haunt of mine. It's called the Underwood Art Factory, also known as the Grind Cafe, which opened up around about 6 months ago and has become very popular and noted for its excellent food. So recommend, if you are in Phuket, definitely pop in by. Not only is the food great, but it's a really fascinating place to look around, as you can see. We're only about 50 metres away from the actual bypass road, one of the busiest roads on the island, so you can hear a bit of noise. But enough about that, let's get stuck into today's main news stories. Thailand's Health Minister Anutin is now claiming that the first stage of human trials of the locally produced vaccine brew will get underway next month. The local Thai vaccine is a joint collaboration between the Government Pharmaceutical Organisation and the Faculty of Tropical Medicine of Mahidol University. It's understood the vaccine has performed satisfactorily in animal testing, showing an ability to stimulate immunity. Human trials will take place in 3 stages. Phase 1 will involve 210 volunteers and be conducted over 2 months to determine the ideal dosage. Thai volunteers in next month's trials will be either given a vaccine or a placebo. Those who show positive results will also take part in Phase 2 trials. In Phase 2, researchers will trial 2 of the most effective dosages on 250 participants. Phase 3 should end the end of this year. Once the vaccine has successfully completed all 3 phases, the vaccine manufacturers will seek approval from the local FDA and then go into production locally. The Faculty of Tropical Medicine has more than 30 years' experience in testing various vaccines, including those used against bird flu, dengue fever, cervical cancer, HIV and the seasonal flu. The normally busy tourist hotspots of Pattaya and Phuket are aiming to reboot domestic tourism. Now that the latest COVID-19 surge is waning, both locations had become completely dependent on domestic tourists following last April's border closures, but then had to contend with a second blow when COVID-19 clusters broke out in December, principally around Samut Sakhon and Rayong. Now Pattaya has launched a campaign known as Check-in Chonburi Free 500. Guests who check into a hotel anywhere in the eastern province of Chonburi will be rewarded with a 100 baht coupon, which can be redeemed at around 130 restaurants and spas and tourist attractions. On the first night, 5 coupons will be handed out, up to a maximum of 10 coupons for 2 nights. The promotion is only available for people from outside of Chonburi. Meanwhile, Phuket has also launched an online campaign called Have You Ever? Phuket's provincial administration organisation is calling on Thais to share the campaign on Facebook to encourage people to visit the island. Phuket's governor says that the damage done to the local tourism sector by the border closures and lockdowns means it must now fight back to rebuild its economy. Myanmar's military commander has established a line of communication with Thailand's PM Prayut Chan-o-cha, detailing why a coup was staged next door and why they found it necessary to seize power after a democratic election last November. Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing explained why the Tatmadaw, that's the Burmese army, had to stage a coup and asked for help to support democracy. He alleged that fraud took place in the November 8 democratic election, an election where the army-backed parties only gained 7% of the total vote. The country's election commission has already dismissed the army's complaints of fraud just days before the coup on February the 1st. PM Prayut responded by saying he always supports the democracy of Myanmar but won't interfere in its internal affairs. He said, at the very least, we're supportive of the democratic process in Myanmar, whilst what we also have to do is maintain relations with Myanmar as well as possible because of the benefit for all Thai people and border trade with the neighbouring country. Thailand supports the democratic process. The rest is up to him to see how to proceed. PM Prayut says the issue is sensitive, but warned that he was not supportive of anti-Myanmar coup protests inside Thailand. Hundreds of Burmese people recently gathered outside the Myanmar embassy in Bangkok, whilst in Myanmar, thousands of demonstrators have taken to the main city of Yangon, including hundreds of government workers and a group of policemen from the eastern Kayah state. The large protests have prompted the military to issue a night curfew and restrictions on gathering in the state's larger cities. Pro-democracy activists have pledged to continue and increase their protest action this year, aiming for 2 million protesters at each event. The pledge came a day after 4 activists were denied bail by the criminal court in Bangkok. Around 1,000 protesters gathered at the Pathumwan intersection in the capital, calling for the release of their 4 colleagues, the ringleaders of last year's anti-government protest movement. They also reiterated the 3 key demands they've been pushing for since the anti-government protests began in July last year: the resignation of the PM, a rewrite of the constitution and reform of the Thai monarchy. Protesters booed police officers and beat pots and pans, a nod to the belief that banging pots will dispel evil spirits. One activist told the media that the pots were empty to reflect the fact that many people are now so poor and can't afford rice. Yesterday's protest started at 4, with participants marching to the Pathumwan police station at around 7:30 to demand the release of the 4 detained activists. Police arrested 10 people, including 2 minors, who were released on bail of 5,000 baht each. Protesters dispersed peacefully around 9 p.m. Thai authorities say they will oppose Vietnam's plan to impose 34% anti-dumping tax on sugar imports from Thailand. Vietnamese authorities claim that Thai exporters are gaining an advantage over their Vietnamese competitors because of lower costs. The Vietnamese Industry and Trade Ministry launched a probe into the issue and, according to its preliminary findings, found the accusations have grounds. The investigation, conducted since September last year, found dumped sugar from Thailand sharply increased to 1.3 million tonnes, up 330% from the year before. The schedule for the import duty has not been decided. The ministry expects to conclude its investigation in the second quarter of this year. Thailand, the world's 4th biggest sugar producer and the 2nd largest exporter following Brazil, saw its sugar exports becoming increasingly popular overseas because of apparent better production standards and lower production costs. Well, that's all the main news stories from around Thailand and, well, a little bit from either side of the border as well. Thank you very much for joining us this week. Tomorrow we're having a day off. It's Chinese New Year tomorrow and Saturday, so a gong xi fa chai to all our friends out there with Chinese ethnicity. We'll be back with another Thailand News Today next week. We'll also start seeing some new faces and segments. So stick around, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and have a fantastic weekend.